Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be discussing Chiron and the archetype of the wounded healer and what it represents in our natal charts. But before we start disseminating Chiron, I've got news for you. So I have created a Facebook group called Written in the Stars Community. And I would love for all of you who are interested in further discussions around astrology and who would like to connect with the wider Written in the Stars community to join me on Facebook. So we are talking on a day-to-day basis, we are exchanging ideas, and we are having loads of fun. So I'm going to link the group in the description box down below, and please feel free to join me and also invite your friends who are interested in astrology. Now, going back to Chiron. Who is Chiron and why should you care about him at all? So first of all, Chiron is not a planet, he's a planetoid, and he was discovered in 1977. His orbit around the sun is incredibly eccentric, which is actually very telling for this planetoid because he is called a maverick by astrologers. Now, what sort of archetype does Chiron represent and what does he symbolize in the natal chart? Chiron is the symbol of the wounded healer. It represents an area within ourselves where we have experienced either loss or actual pain and wounds without us having anything to say in it, or without us actually causing it. So it was as if a part of us was caught in the crossfire and we were made vulnerable. We had to suffer in a particular area of our life, and we didn't cause it. Again, I know I keep on saying this, but it is actually very, very important to keep in mind. Now, why is Chiron a maverick? Because in mythology, let me go back and tell you a little story. In mythology, Chiron was the son of Saturn and a sea nymph called Philyra. Now, Philyra wasn't very keen on sleeping with Saturn, and she turned herself into a mare. Now, Saturn was very adamant about having Philyra, and therefore he turned himself into a stallion, and still, he basically did what he wanted to do with Philyra, and out of this union came out Chiron. Now, Chiron in astrology, in mythology, is represented by a creature which is half human and half horse. So he is the definition of the centaur. He was rejected by both his parents because he was the bastard of Saturn, and his mother Philyra couldn't stand looking at him. So he experienced rejection very early on in his life. However, Chiron, because he was so different and he couldn't find his place either with like humans or with the horses, he carved a path of his own, and he actually ended up being the mentor and the teacher and also the shaman, the healer, because Chiron had healing powers to many mythological heroes such as Achilles and Hercules, and he was also the mentor of Apollo. Now, that is the myth of Chiron. So in our natal chart, Chiron, wherever it's placed, and you can find where it's placed by going online and using one of the natal chart online generators for free. All you need to know is your date, time, and place of birth. You have to look at where Chiron is placed in your natal chart, and in particular the sign that it is placed in, because it represents areas in our life where we feel vulnerable and we've been wounded ourselves. However, because we have the experience of pain, we can heal both ourselves and others. If you've got Chiron in Aries, this usually this placement denotes having an early experience of not being able or not being allowed to assert yourself and to assert your individuality, or not being allowed to fight for what is yours. So either like your parents or the environment that you grew up in was very adamant about you sharing everything. And what that led to was a vulnerability in taking the lead and vulnerability in accepting yourself as an individual and going for what you want as opposed to what everyone else wants, and going and taking what's yours as opposed to sharing it with everyone else. Now, you can heal others in that area, and a very useful way of channeling the Chiron in Aries energy is by doing therapy through sports and through competitive sports. So that is Chiron in Aries. Now, if you have Chiron placed in Taurus, you might have had an early experience where, because of circumstances outside of your control, obviously, it felt like you did not have the material resources to do what you wanted to do, or to allow you to live the way you wanted to live. And that can in turn make you want to acquire wealth and make you want to gather resources and collect and amass and save as much as possible. Also, it's very possible that you might have had almost like an early disconnect with your body and your senses. So body dysmorphia is actually characteristic of Chiron in Taurus, but once you get over it, once you heal yourself, you can help other people heal themselves in that area. Now, therapy that uses the five senses is also very beneficial for Chiron in Taurus. So aromatherapy, massage. So again, everything that uses the Taurian senses, because Taurus rules the five senses, right? Now, if you have Chiron in Gemini, there might have been an early challenging experience of that has to do with speech or how you expressed yourself. So not being able to talk properly, or dyslexia, or not being able to read properly, not being able to express yourself on one level or another, might have led to this vulnerability. And in turn, you can actually help other people heal themselves by helping them connect with their center of speech and helping them connect with the part in themselves that they want to put out into the world. So it's very possible that Chiron in Gemini experienced early pain when it came to speech or writing or reading or being listened to. Now, Chiron in Cancer, and that is actually my placement, might have had an early experience of either homelessness or not feeling at home when they were in the bosom of their family. It's also some sort of foster child or adopted child, or even black sheep of the family kind of wound. It's as if you felt that you lacked a tribe and you lacked your own clan. And in turn, once you acknowledge the pain, you can heal others by making them feel at home, by making them feel very welcome, by doing social care, by working with the homeless, and by nurturing other people. It's very possible with Chiron in Cancer that you might have not experienced as much nurturing from your family as you needed, and that is a vulnerable area inside your soul. Now, with Chiron in Leo, there's usually an early experience of the child not being allowed to shine, to take center stage, to express themselves creatively, and to be applauded and acknowledged and rewarded for who they are. In turn, you can help others heal in that area by providing them with the right tools to gain self-confidence, because when you're not allowed to shine when you're young, then you're bound to lack self-confidence, and you're bound to lack, obviously it's all something that can be healed, but to start with, it's as if what you say doesn't matter, and who you are doesn't matter, and what you create doesn't matter, and that is a very, very painful experience. Also, you can help heal both yourself and others through play therapy, or therapy that uses drama or theatrics. Now, if you have Chiron in Virgo, you might have experienced early pain around not being perfect and not being up to par with the unattainable standards that either your family or society placed upon you. That can usually result in digestive, psychosomatic illnesses, and it can make you feel that you are useless and not of service to others, and people don't need the service that you are willing to bring to them. However, that can be overcome by finding a craft of your own, by honing skills that not everyone else notices in you, and by making yourself useful in ways that not all people would have thought of. So find your own maverick, perfectionist Virgo way. Also, alternative medicine is an area in which you might want to look into, because if you develop psychosomatic illnesses, then I'm not going to say it's unlikely, but you might have difficulties in healing yourself through traditional medicine. If you have Chiron in Libra, you might have felt early on that maybe you were not attractive enough to people around you. Maybe people didn't like you as much as you wanted them to, and maybe you struggled in forming a partnership. So Chiron in Libra people are actually those who make very good couple therapists. Also, it's possible, because Libra is the sign of justice after all, you might have experienced early pain around unfairness and injustice that you couldn't fight, and the way to heal yourself is by fighting for justice later on in life. Now, if you have Chiron in Scorpio, then you might have experienced loss of power and lack of control over your life when you were young. That can happen through a variety of ways. So this might be triggering for some people, and I wanna give you a heads up. That could happen through abuse. That could happen through experiences of war, for instance, through displacement, complete and utter displacement, a death in the family, so some traumatic experience that made you realize that we are not actually in control of our lives, and that can be overcome by focusing on how much power you do actually have, and by focusing on controlling what is in our power to change throughout this lifetime. Sex features, and it's very possible that sex also played a part in the traumatic experience of Chiron and Scorpio. So out of this experience, sex therapists can come out and help others heal. Now, if you have Chiron in Capricorn, then very early on, you might have been burdened with too much responsibility, and you might have been forced somehow to take the responsibility of an elder on your own shoulders. So there was no one else to deal with the amount of work and pressure and responsibility around you. So you had to take that very early on when you were not ready to do so. And it's also very possible with Chiron and Capricorn that you found it hard to be accepted by those in a position of authority, and it might have been hard for you to climb to a position of authority. It's as if what you said, again, didn't matter, and no one listened to you, and no one paid attention to you, and all in all, you had no decision making power. You can heal others by redefining, you can heal others and yourself by redefining what authority means, by being your own boss. And also Capricorn, if we think of it in a physical sense of the word, because Chiron doesn't necessarily have to do with psychological pain or trauma. It can also have to do with physical pain and trauma. Capricorn rules the teeth and the bones and the skin. So you might have been impeded and you might have been restricted in doing all the things that you wanted to do in your childhood, in youth, because you had some sort of health problem. I don't know why I keep on doing this. Can't speak English, guys, today. You might have had some health problem related to these organs that I've just mentioned. Chiron in Aquarius. Now, this has maverick written all over it, and this has lack of acceptance from the group and lack of acceptance from those around you, because you were different, you were weird, you did not have the same vision of life as they did, and that can actually result in you being a champion for those who espouse alternative lifestyle, alternative views, alternative ways of looking at things and doing things. So you might be a champion of the LGBT community, just to give you an example. And it's up to you to heal yourself by accepting that you are different and by helping others accept that they are also different. And that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with them whatsoever. Now, Chiron in Pisces, last but not least, might have dealt very early on with tremendous loss, grief also, but it felt like there was no faith. There was nothing to have faith in anymore. So you might have struggled with having faith in the universe and the world and everything that happened around us very, very early on. It's as if you lost your God very early on in life, and it's up to you to find an alternative spiritual kind of healing and spiritual kind of faith to follow and to help others believe in and open up their eyes to the universal order and to an alternative kind of spiritual life. So guys, I'm hoping you have enjoyed Chiron, the wounded healer talk. I know it's a bit of a heavy one because, hey, it's not easy to talk about our traumas. It's not easy to talk about the pain that we have experienced and that we have buried somewhere deep inside of us. But if astrology doesn't help us talk about these things, then who will? Well, maybe psychology. I can think of other therapies as well, but I think it's very important to acknowledge where that pain comes from to start with. And once we got that out of the way, then it's much easier to pull ourselves out of that dark pit of despair and heal both ourselves and others. So if you've got any other questions about Chiron, leave them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to reply to all of you. Thank you. Bye.